Hi everyone, and welcome to this panel talking about the OWASP AI Exchange. I will be the moderator for it, and very shortly I'm going to have each one of the panelists introduce themselves. Just thought I should let you know, if you're not familiar with the OWASP AI Exchange, it's basically a comprehensive guidance and alignment as to how organizations should work towards protecting AI systems against security threats. And we have a bunch of experts that have been part of this organization for more than, some of us have been on it for like 8 months or more, or even less, but everyone has been a part of it in some sort of way and fashion. A little bit about myself. I work on AI safety and security. I work a lot now on policy and legislation and helping with governance to help find those like knowledge gaps and try to bring awareness to these issues and ensure that we're all being safe and also being able to innovate in a good way possible. Other than that, I am the founder and principal consultant of Sustain Cyber. I am also a founding member of Disclose.io and a board member of Diana Initiative, and have been involved in election security as well, and also in different universities and helping them on their research when it comes to DEI and cybersecurity. I'm now going to pass the mic over, and by passing the mic, he has his own mic. Go for it.
That was funny. Yeah, hi, my name is Aruneesh Salhotra. I consider myself to be a technologist journalist. I work as a fractional CISO for my own consulting firm itself. I also consider myself to be a lifelong learner, and I strongly believe in that because, you cannot know everything every single time. So you have to keep improving upon things. I'm also really passionate about education, imparting information to the masses itself about the security concerns, like across the board, whether it's colleges, schools, what have you, right? Extremely passionate about nonprofits, investor. I do like a few things. It'll probably take me like 10 minutes to talk about myself, but yeah, that's a brief introduction for myself. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dan Sorensen. Varied background. I think a lot of us in this room, not just up here on a panel, we have a lot of background and experience in different aspects. Red team, pen tester, blue team, cyber defense, done anywhere from malware analysis, software reverse engineer, and hands-on technical, but also sitting in like leadership roles as a CISO. Recently been trying to help out with an organization called Cybersecurity Forum Initiative, CSFI. Really awesome nonprofit as well that they're actually writing something called the Geneva Manual. So basically it's on cyber threat intelligence. So a good buddy of mine, he's out in Europe trying to kind of pull that together. So I'm one of the editors there. I'm actually trying to support Eric Severson on writing a book called The AI Mindset, and kind of focusing on the cybersecurity side of it. So background in several different things, but I just like to see myself as Humble Dan. It was one of the main contributors really to the OWASP AI Exchange. And as an encouragement to all y'all is, hey, what is a better way to learn, to be smart and all that is surround yourself with other smart people. So cheers.
Hello guys, my name is Nev. I'll continue to that. I say also that also for us it's pretty cool because we work together for a while now, but this is like the first time that we also meet in person. So it's a great opportunity also for us to have a lot of fun. I started my career in A200, the Israeli cyber unit in the IDF. Started in the security side of it, but also built some data and AI departments as part of the unit. And then basically I continued to combine both of my loves, AI and security during the whole time. It started by using AI for security products. And now also the opposite, and to make sure that we truly have a more secured world on the AI initiatives that we have in companies. I'm also a co-founder and CEO of Noma Security, a startup that also acts in this exact field. That's all.
Hi all, my name is Susanna Cox. I am a former red teamer. I've held basically every job on the offensive security stack, red team, ops lead, and so forth. I started pen testing and breaking AI systems around 2010. and I've been working in that area for quite some time. I eventually ended up becoming a data scientist, and then a machine learning engineer, AI/ML architect, and then finally a chief data officer. So I've now held most of the jobs in the AI stack. My research focuses around safety-critical engineering for AI systems. I am a 10th generation security professional. I'm the daughter of a pilot and a homicide detective. So I kind of came up in aerospace and security and all of that. It's always going to be my first love. In 2022, I wrote a paper called Securing AI/ML Systems in the Age of Information Warfare. That ended up being the first published MLSecOps architecture. I hoped that that would provide a way for the industry to integrate security into their AI systems. Change has been slow, but we're seeing it becoming increasingly adopted. So lately what I've been working on is contributing to the OWASP AI Exchange. I've been working on something for a risk assignment, a risk threshold assignment for AI systems, which I'm super excited about. Pushed a couple of patents back in February for a federated machine learning security system. And yeah, happy to be here talking to y'all about AI security surrounded by such incredible people. I'm very excited for this panel today.
So we're always going to have this link basically behind on here. So if you ever want to kind of learn while we're talking, or you need to do something while you're listening, that's a great place to go to. Not Reddit. This is for now. Okay, you go Reddit when you get out that exit. But let's talk about some of the things. I think the first question that some people might have is, how can you provide a brief overview? What is the OWASP AI Exchange, and like, what's our mission when it comes to the AI security landscape?
Yeah, so AI Exchange really started, I think, like early this year, maybe the grounding was done maybe last year itself. And one of the mission for OWASP AI Exchange is like be the top bookmark for anything related to AI security. And one of the projects that we are doing is around like step-by-step adoption guide for organization. I think there are a lot of information out there. If you Google and stuff, right, you'll find lots of information, but there is no cohesive idea, okay, this is how the organization needs to actually start their journey itself, adopting Gen AI within their organization, whether it's you're creating your own models itself or you're getting a SaaS solution. I think the attributes for different solutions are the same. It's like you just need guidance of like, where do you start, right? How does all this relate to regulations, different acts, whether it's in US, outside, Asia Pacific. So it's kind of, we'll have like a slide right after this one, which is one of the things that we are doing is feeding into different standards, whether it's EU Act, MITRE, NIST, COS AI. So we have lived in collaboration with different standard bodies itself, right? So in a nutshell, that's the mission for AI Exchange. Anybody else wants to add?
That's good.
All right. So I'm just going to show it because he briefly chatted about it, which is some of the standard bodies that we're currently working with at this time. I'm going to go back to that slide, though, for you always to be aware of this website. Okay, so the OWASP AI Exchange, it does bring together experts from across the globe. Like, we are completely international. Like, we have people from all over the world that participate in this. And this is great for trying to get these standards going, but also being aware of other regulations in other countries, but also how other countries are dealing with the security for AI. So how does the decentralized global structure tend to benefit the initiative in terms of diversity and practical contributions to AI security practices?
Sure. So for me, I think one of the key aspects, as I like to say, is really how do you be smarter, right? Surround yourself with smart people. So I come from a background working with active duty Air Force, then I was in the Air National Guard, working offensive, defensive, cybersecurity, and really integrating in that piece. And so I live in Denver. I travel back and forth to DC all the time. And then when we jump on, like every other week on our calls, we actually get to discuss a lot of really in depth of what's happening in Europe, what's happening in the US, what's happening in legislation, and all these different aspects. And so for me, the decentralized aspect is I can bring from the government, the military, DoD perspective, and saying there's a thing called NIPR GPT, nippergpt.mil. that they're starting to work on and create, and it's not the best thing, honestly, but I've actually been able to support in some of that initiative, as well as a couple of years ago, they stood up the Joint AI Center, they call it JIAC, within the US government. So bringing some of that perspective into the group, I think that's one of the things I was able to bring to the party or bring to the team. But then from there, I learned so much from all these other guys, from their perspectives, the backgrounds, from Red Team, all over the world. So I think that's really helped me tremendously. Anyone else have anything to add?
Fine, perfect.
Yeah, I would just like to add on to that. It's been a tremendous outlet for my work to just be able to have smart people critique it. AI security is such a nascent field, and I'm saying this a lot, but I'm going to keep telling this story because when I published that paper, everyone called me crazy for a year and said I was making it up and AI security wasn't real. So, we're 2 years into this now, and people are finally starting to wake up to the degree to which these systems are, number one, embedded in really important and critical aspects of our everyday lives, and the degree to which they are unsecured. And that's insecure on many levels in terms of people not practicing basic security standards that they should be. Role-based access control is my favorite that I always bring up, to people who are unprepared for the types of AI/ML specific attacks. So being in industry and seeing this gave me a particular perspective, but having a place where I could be with other people who have similar perspective but bring these different diversity of views and so forth has really, I think, propelled the research forward on all counts, not just for me, but for others as well.
I think that's like one of my favorite part about this entire project itself is like no matter what your background is, no matter of like who you are, there's no doors that are closed, there's no gatekeeping here. So if you want to participate, even if you're trying to learn yourself, that's really good for us to learn from you because we might be missing things that we need to dive into and make sure that people are aware of because those knowledge gaps are very real and really scary. Like she was mentioning earlier, people didn't really understand security for AI, and it was such like a buzzword, for the longest time, like blockchain. Not going to say anything, and that's unfortunate, right? And so this is where we are in so many areas. Now we do offer like a structured framework for navigating AI security. So I want to talk a little bit about that, which is, can you describe the key components of this type of framework and explain how it makes AI security easier to navigate for industry professionals? Go for it.
I'm holding the mic, so I'll start with this, and other people can feel free to add more. But I talked about this a little bit yesterday in my talk, but I really appreciate how it's organized because if you do your data flows, which should be step one to understanding the security of your AI/ML systems, understand where your data is going, understand where your interdependencies are with AI/ML systems, then going to the OWASP AI Exchange, you have it already set up for runtime threats, threats in development, threats through use. So you can literally pull out your data flows and say, okay, here is the area where I may need to apply these controls. And it just makes it so much easier for people who are actual practitioners in the field. You don't have to have a lot of esoteric knowledge. You don't have to have read all these AI papers. You can pull out a diagram of your system and be like, okay, here's where we need to physically apply controls. And I think, especially if you're coming in at ground level, that's one of the most helpful aspects.
To that, actually, I think this is a great point, and I think that one of the most important things that we focus on is that today when people say AI security, a lot of time we hear the same points, that focusing on LLM only and focusing on runtime only. And one of the things that we really put the focus on is that we want to provide the most comprehensive framework possible, because when we look at real risks that today, real attacks that happens in the field, we see that a lot of time through exactly like Susanna mentioned, start in the development phase, and it start with open source area, and it start with basic misconfigurations and supply chain areas, and not only on the runtime, and in addition, not only on LLM only. So one of the things that we also put the focus is also the true classic machine learning, also predictive AI, and not only the Gen AI one. because we know also like from all the communication, of course, that we have with the whole community all the time, that these are actually like the technologies that are like today are already like in mass adoption in the organizations. And we want to make sure that we provide all the information and we think together and exchange the thoughts that we have on the new kind of like a rising risk that we have and we are all like starting to prepare for. But in addition that we can already like take a lot of insight that we can truly like take already from the AI Exchange and to implement in every big organization that look at it, and I think that like the things there are very, very, very practical. And the last thing, it's not only about security, but like some people like Albert like mentioned it, and it's true, also a lot of compliance. Because like some of the thing that we do is really like to collaborate also like with the main like frameworks for compliance, including like truly like having real impact like from the AI Exchange on AI EU Act and the different standards that are being built these days. And I think that this is what like for me is really like unique about the framework that we all build here together.
I think for me, one of the key aspects and why I wanted to join the team really a lot is because how many of us have like, done red team, blue teaming, whatever, we have tons of resources, but where do you pull all that together? So coming and joining the team and saying like, hey, I started this, laundry list of either links and policies and everything, frameworks, what better way to just pull it all together and have a centralized database, centralized resource for that. So being able to use it myself, but also being able to contribute to that, I think it's been pretty rewarding. So.
Well, you guys, you knew exactly where I was going to go next on this. I'm a big fan of understanding and connecting standard bodies, such as the ones that you see on this screen. That beautiful slide is back. But how does the OWASP AI Exchange align its work with other major AI security frameworks such as COSI or NIST or MITRE? I mean, what are some of these like key collaborations?
So I think I'll go by this particular diagram and maybe somewhere from the left-hand side, right? So one of the key attributes for AI Exchange is it's free of copyright issue. That's why it actually makes it very seamless for us to actually collaborate with different bodies, whether it's ISO, NIST, MITRE, like different standards, AI, like even EU Act itself, right? So it's covered under the Creative Commons license 1.0, which means like you can use it, you don't have to do any attribution to this. So we kind of collaborate with different projects, either within OWASP. I mean, like everybody probably has already heard about like OWASP Top 10 for the last almost like 1 year. And by the way, the version 2 is going to be rolled out in next few months. I'm not supposed to actually share it, but no, I can share it freely, but I think in 2 months it's going to be rolled out. So we have a close collaboration within and outside AI Exchange, whether it's ISO, there is almost like a regular cadence meeting with different standard bodies, whether it's NIST, MITRE, and there is some recognition for AI Exchange in different bodies. I think we were attributed or like mentioned in Senelec, that's one of the bodies in Europe itself. So yeah, and that list has definitely grow as more and more things come about, right? And there is another body called COS AI itself. So we have like a strong collaboration with them also as we go along.
I think it just adding on to that, what you've shared is what are some of those key ways OWASP Exchange is feeding into the creation of industry standards? Like, for example, when it comes to EU AI Act or any regulatory frameworks such as like NIST, what does that participation look like at this time? Okay.
Well, I can talk about my aspect of that. We actually have a spot in the NIST Artificial Intelligence Safety Institute Consortium, and I'm currently one of the liaisons to that for the OWASP AI Exchange. That's been super cool to be able to participate in. I'm the team lead for the gap analysis for the NIST predictive, taxonomy for adversarial AI. So it's been really interesting to go through both sets of standards, if you will, and not just look for gaps in coverage, but really understand how we take different approaches to understanding this field. And I'm hoping to publish something about that soon, depending on what my team members think in collaboration. That's been a lot of fun because it kind of reveals a lot about how different players in the industry think and maybe hopefully shakes loose some of the directions that we're going to be going in the future. We've also been working, there's a requirements group that's contributing to requirements for the EU AI Act. And that's just going in and saying, okay, we have these standards, we have these controls, how exactly are you going to implement them? Like, what are we going to require that you do to show that you're in compliance with this? And I wrote a paper to solve the problem of risk threshold assignment, which I found out I think they're going to use that, so I'm pretty excited about that. That's pretty cool. So we're kind of working off of assurance cases there. There's a lot of debate about how you assign risk thresholds for AI system regulation according to maybe like compute power or the number of parameters in a model and so forth. And so I think we may be taking a different approach from that. And that's been really exciting to work on. So by being part of the OWASP AI Exchange, I've had an opportunity to touch policy in ways that I might not otherwise get to do, and that's been a tremendous amount of fun. I'm really looking forward to seeing how these things take shape in the future because we're really having a direct impact on the industry, both now in the immediate future, and I have to believe over the long term as well.
I think adding on to like what she is saying about integrating with NIST, I've also joined a couple of different groups. One is the Institute for Ethical AI and Machine Learning, and being able to be part of that hub and seeing the resources they have and also being able to contribute greatly assists in the overall process. When I joined the Responsible AI Institute as well, they have a hub of a lot of great resources that we've tried to make sure we either pull in as part of the OWASP AI Exchange or also provide to them some resources as well. So that decentralized aspect of having us all around the world, different industries, has really helped tremendously on this project.
To add on, if any of you all work for a government agency or part of legislation, please let them know that we exist. I think one of the things that I've realized is that when I talk to politicians, they're very eager to learn about what are the gaps in security for AI, because this is a huge hot topic. And I have to admit, it is the one topic I've seen Capitol make so much more moves and conversations than any other tech before. And so for them, it's trying to address what do they not know. And there's been a lot of talks about like deepfakes, for example, or disinformation, misinformation campaigns. But talking about security for AI, the basic issues like adversarial attacks and so on, these are the things that they need to know about. So if you work for any of those agencies, feel free to connect with me or just tell them about this beautiful link that you see right here with them, because sharing is caring, and this is how we make sure that our legislation actually matches what is going on in the environment. Cybersecurity has been siloed for way too long, and it's about time that we play a much bigger role now when it comes to legislation, especially when it comes to AI, such as Colorado State right now. They now have a law in place for AI, and that's going to start taking place in February 2026, and other states are going to follow. So this is a really important, crucial time for us to come together and share this beautiful resource here at this link. All right, so I kind of mentioned a little bit of the current gaps where we are when it comes to, I guess, in government and also in our own industry. And in some ways, each one of us have also supplied that information. But where do you think is the biggest current gaps right now, and how are we addressing these gaps through the OWASP AI Exchange?
Actually, I'll give my personal story, right, how I got associated with this. So last year, maybe in like August and September, and probably some of you would resonate, right? Like, where do I find the information? And I started like browsing everything on my own and trying to figure out, and one thing I realized, I cannot know everything on my own itself. And so then I started I run like 2 independent research groups, one focused on Gen AI, one on quantum computing. And while I was doing it, I saw this particular post on LinkedIn by our leader, Rob. He's based out in the Netherlands. You should actually look him up. He actually did one of the keynote for OWASP Lisbon. So I got involved in that when I saw like-minded people it's not just like 5 of us. I mean, like, there are like over like 50 different people who are contributing to this one, right? I was like, that's the right resource that I need to actually ensure I can learn along with the other people, right? AI itself is a very big field itself. Sorry, I went on a tangent. What was the question?
Oh, it was about what are the current gaps?
Yeah, so I think from a gap perspective, I think there is a lot of guidance that organization really need is like, how do you actually take the step number 1, right? I mean, or what the step number 2? Is it I need to just get like a solution into my organization, or I need to actually get models from Hugging Face or any protected site, right? There are a lot of questions that needs to be answered, right? So one of the projects or one of the initiatives that we have within AI Exchange is like the adoption guide, which actually kind of guides organization to take those steps one thing at a time and looking at regulation at the same time in parallel, right? So I think from a gap perspective, it's the guidance itself, it's not there cohesively. You have to actually go to 10 different resources. So one of our objectives with an AI Exchange is actually bring all this together in one particular umbrella.
I would tag on to that is sometimes, when we look at things from a strategic perspective, you could like look at the leaf or the bark on a tree, but it's hard to sometimes see the bigger forest. And as a strategic, thinker, I try to like ask the questions, what does the forest look like? Okay, I'm looking at this one little detail, but what is the overall bigger picture? And one of the gaps I would say is that we really focus on is the educational piece. Having that resource, pulling things together and trying to, splice that together for educational, the guidelines, the tools, because everybody's talking about AI nowadays, right? But where is it we can get in depth into, all right, how do we remediate? What's a step-by-step process to testing, to validating, to utilizing some of these resources? We can have something in the cloud, but it's just somebody else's computer, right? So when we're actually using some of these resources, we can say, oh, hey, I'm gonna do a standalone RAG and try to test this and to see how this works. I'm gonna train it myself. Hey, if I train it in the cloud, guess what? All the data I'm putting into their PII, whatever else, it's not gonna be mine. I'm training the internet, I'm training OWASP, people and everything else on some of these information. So we need a body of resource to be able to connect those dots. So I think that's one of the gaps we need to fill is, great, everyone talks about it, but how do we really implement, test, validate, educate others on it?
We'll continue, and I think that like the gap that I see today are actually like the basic one. And I think that like we run a lot of time like very fast to the advanced phases, but the basic is still like in gap. And I think that like two things that I see there. The first one is like more related, exactly like Dan said, like to the education. I think that the two practitioners that we have today in our organizations, the data and the AI departments and the application security, still need to learn each other's language. We see that like during like the last decade, we learned the great common language of software engineering departments together with the application security and the product security departments. But when we go and like we look at the data and AI, we see that we truly like it's completely like it sounds like so different like from each other. Like we see like practitioners that truly like you see them like discussing on the same conversation, and you understand from a side sometimes that like they don't mean even like the same thing. The whole life cycle truly like is differently. Like you tell to security practitioners stuff like ETLs and then like truly like basic stuff for the data types that are not aware. And if you speak with the data teams, a lot of time like open source like dependency confusion, like stuff very basic are also like not like they're not like aware of. And it's not because like anybody like try to do it like intentionally, but we never like started this process in the data and AI departments. And I think that like actually now like the main focus that the data and AI area like get because of the Gen AI, it's a great opportunity for all of us to start and like build like the basic and common language between the R&D departments of the data and AI and also on the security. And on the basic gap on the technical side, I think it already like mentioned it, I think that actually one of the things that we need to cover is truly like all the basic risks that we are all already aware of and we are all already educated on, like misconfigurations, like open source, like code scanning and stuff like that. But now we need to make sure that we find the right framework, exactly like we try to do here, in order to implement all these different security measures that we already implemented on the classic software lifecycle and the classic application, and now to also like make sure that we cover it also on the data and AI, because it's not only the prompt injections and the model in out of service and wallet, like it's also like very basic stuff that today we are as an industry, we're actually like missing and we're like lacking in the data and AI departments.
I'm going to go even more basic than that. I think that what is missing today in the gap that I see that I feel is foundational to understanding is that these systems are not magic. They are statistics machines. And the sooner we are able to educate people on this fact, I think the sooner we can take a little bit of the mystical aspects out of it, demystify it for people quite literally so that they can begin to understand how these systems actually work. Because when you understand that these are statistics machines, then you understand how anything operating on a gradient can be tricked. And you understand how many of these attacks work. Then you understand the need to do certain security controls and why you're doing them. But this can really only happen once we stop acting like AI is some sort of unknowable magic produced by super geniuses and we can't know it. No, it's statistics, it's high school math, it's just a lot of it. And if you've got enough processors or enough GPUs, you can do a lot of high school math pretty quickly and do some pretty cool stuff with it, it turns out. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what these things are. So I feel like the sooner we're able to help people look at an AI model the same way that people used to look like the engine of a car. Like this is a mechanical thing. I can look at it, I can understand how it works. You know, we have issues with explainability and so forth that we can begin to tackle. That's a separate problem. But at the root of it, simply understanding that, you know, this isn't a black box that's made out of magic, it's stats. That will give people, I think, a tremendous ability to secure their AI/ML systems and interact with these systems in society.
All right, now here's the big question. What do you all think is the #1 biggest fear you have when it comes to securing AI? And you better not say prompt injection, okay? I'm just putting it out there. What is the top one for you? And you can always change it if you hear someone else say it, or you can say ditto, whatever works best for you.
Currently, my top fears revolve around the insecurity of our social, I don't want to say social media, but social systems that are dependent on AI/ML. It is frighteningly easy still to take over a number of platforms and use them for your own purposes. You don't need a lot of people to do it. You don't necessarily need a lot of processing power to do it. And it's frightening. I wrote that paper in 2022, and I feel like the security professionals who knew were able to read between the lines and see what I wasn't saying, because there are things that I couldn't publish. It's absolutely too dangerous because I know there's no way that they're going to fix this. And that's the thing about AI security. A lot of these things, like you can't just submit a report. You can't just be like, hey guys, I found this security flaw, fix it. There's no responsible disclosure for me to tell Facebook that I can use their system to take over an election if I want to. I don't know that they care. So we have a lot of problems here, and I'm not 100% sure if everyone is taking them as seriously as I'd like for them to, but that's my #1 fear, is that this is going to be ignored, and people are going to focus on Gen AI and that sort of thing, leaving all of these other AI embedded systems completely vulnerable to malicious actors.
I would say from my perspective, coming from working with the government, the DoD, military, is one of the biggest fears. I would say it's a lack of collaboration from the white hat community, from us joining together. We can go and see a lot of people using, whether it's bots, botnets, AI. So it's not just the typical, everybody kind of kid back in the day of getting this email from some prince in Africa, and he wants, to give you, lots of money, and that's not the reality anymore. The reality is they're highly sophisticated and can, use AI to translate into multiple languages in almost perfect English nowadays. So spotting the bad issue is a lot harder. So to me, I would say the key thing is collaboration on our behalf. of us working together. And I said, hey, it's one thing to be a cybersecurity professional or CISO or whatever part of an organization or company, but really we need to join together, whether it's an information sharing analysis centers, the ISACs, but we need to do this more even on this new front that it's this mystical black box, some would call it, of AI. So that's from my perspective is the fear of us not working together and collaborating. So, anything else?
Yeah, I'll probably put like a two-folded answer to this one, right? So I work with a lot of nonprofits, and I am kind of passionate about society in general itself. So I see over-reliance of AI growing by days, by weeks itself. Again, like I have two daughters, and I see like they kind of rely on, assume like whatever is coming is kind of correct, and these are like tech-savvy kids, right? But if you extrapolate and go to like, okay, people in the 60s and 70s which are like not tech savvy, I think that's one of the fear that I have. Like it's people are kind of assuming whatever is coming for Gen AI is kind of correct, and it's they can trust it. They don't understand the concept of hallucination, for example, right? So I think bridging that gap is important. And coming back to organization, I mean, like we all kind of protect different organizations, are paid handsomely well. But I think even then there are risks around like, okay, if data gets breached, if your model is kind of reverse engineered, there are a lot of risks that exist. So I think from society side, or like, I think it's over-reliance of technology. And from a corporate side, I think one of my favorite risks is around the supply chain, right? You don't know what all pieces are connected, right? And I think like, I'm a big proponent of SBOM, so I think having solutions around like AI bomb and stuff, like trying to figure out what are the touch points that you have in your entire like pipeline itself is fairly important.
Cool. Yeah, I'll continue. You stole mine, but like I think I'm repeating myself. I think that supply chain is like one of the most critical area, especially because it's so basic. I think that like what we need to understand is like that if Chloé mentioned like prompt injection, it's like new kind of like vulnerability, and new kind of like a risk also for the attackers that now start like to play with and to learn about like this area more and more. I think that like all the basic stuff of misconfiguration, supply chain, open source stuff like that, it's something that in the essence, like in the principle, it's something that all the attackers also like already know. Until now they focus on like different aspects and different like infra, but now when like it's like just a matter of decision. When the moment that they start like to aim more like for our infra of the data and the AI teams and the data and the AI life cycle that we have, so they already have like all the skills that they need. And because like it's going to happen like in every organization, and in every organization we're going to embed like more and more AI eventually as part of the product and as part of the application. It's just like it's the first seed for like a huge potential of like supply chain attack that will continue also like to further like all the users of the application that we build. So it's really saying that we need to start with like from the basics. Sometimes it's less buzzy, but I think it's not less important.
So I know we're almost at time here, but I just wanted to share, if you want to get involved, there are definitely different ways how to. You already have had that link on the page throughout the whole conversation, so you at least have that. Hopefully you saved it in your bookmarks or something. Otherwise, feel free to join our Slack. Yes, we have a Slack group. Not Discord, but Slack. So please join it. I know you all have Slack. It would be great to have you participate. And also, we would love to learn from you and what areas that you want us to venture in. What are the areas that we have gaps in? Because it's going to take all of us to really address the gaps that we may be blinded by. And I just want to say a big thank you for OWASP AppSec, for Global AppSec, for having us and for doing this panel. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for existing, and thanks for joining us. And we're happy to answer maybe a couple of questions if you have any questions at this time. Yeah.
So do you see AIs playing a role in our day-to-day security jobs in the future? Are we going to integrate with them? Like, what does that look like?
I think I'll start off with this one. So I look at it as, I recently heard back in the day, like back in the 1960s and 70s, there was a lot of educators, mathematicians, accountants that were afraid that the calculator was going to take over their job, right? And it's true. A lot of times they're like, oh my goodness, well, guess what? Here we are fast forwarding 2 years down the road. they still have jobs, right? And it became a tool. So I think there's a lot of things out there, just like money can be used for good or can be used for bad. And I think there's a lot of hype in the media of the black box, the magic. We don't know what AI is. Well, no, we're the researchers trying to figure out what is AI, how do we use it as a tool. So I think that going forward, it's going to be a force multiplier, an awesome tool we can use. The more of us researchers try to implement things that can be used for that. So no, I don't think it's going to take over our jobs. I think it's going to be another asset we can leverage, but it's going to require a lot of us, smart guys, to pull that together to make it that. So we're not there yet, but yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would have to agree. AI is going to be a tool. I'm not foreseeing any time in the immediate future when these systems will be in any way, even with agents, will be in any way sophisticated enough to take a security person's job. Like, just think about the amount of human interaction that you have to do every single day and the number of systems that you have to understand and make your own human inferences on. That would be, I'm sorry, I'm getting into my AI engineer space here. I'm like, how would I build that? It would be hard. It would be hard. I'd need a research team and a very long time. So from my perspective, for the foreseeable future, people are going to get their jobs augmented. You're going to have some nice tools that can help you. You're going to have a whole new world of security challenges that AI is bringing. And I think that's probably going to result in more security jobs, but I'm not an economist, so do with that what you will.
I would also say that there's policies and governance and legislation that's been ensuring that there's always a human in the loop. So that also makes some people a little bit more calm on this situation. Please don't take my job, AI. Any other questions?
Yeah, so I had a question, and I've heard this as a theme even in listening to some of the talks at the conference. And it's been mentioned here too about the basics, the things that the data team isn't doing, that products has been doing, or software engineering has been doing. The whole thing about, we've had top 10 for how many years now, that never really seems to change. And maybe this is a bigger thing than just AI Exchange or in general, but why? Why is that still a thing? That we can't take the things we already know about and implement them in this new system that we're developing and have everyone on the same page, so we're not encountering these things and having to do the same thing over again. It was similar with blockchain when that was mentioned too. Smart contracts were getting compromised as well, and repeating the same mistakes that we've already seen. So I'm just kind of curious about your thoughts and opinions on that.
I think that a lot of time it's a matter of like a prioritization and attention that we have, because we all know we have so many risks and so many stuff going on all the time, that eventually we need to prioritize. And I think that one of the things that we didn't prioritize until now, and maybe it was for a good reason, maybe it was it shouldn't be prioritized until now, was exactly like you say, the implementations of all the risks that we are already aware of for the data team, because until now they didn't took the part that they had inside the company probably was of course important, but not didn't cross the threshold that we said, okay, now this is the number one priority that we have. I think that now the Gen AI focus that we have all in the in the industry, as we see all the different AI committees that are now being built and then running as part of organization and stuff like that, I think they put a lot of light on this corner inside the organization, and because they put this light, now we understand that like you said, we're missing the basics. Why didn't we implement the basic stuff of all the different stuff that we already mentioned, supply chain and misconfiguration and stuff like that, on these areas and these teams? I think that until now it was because of prioritization, but I'm really I'm eager to see what happens in the coming 3 to 12 months. From what I see, my experience that I have, and a lot of companies that I speak with and a lot of partners that I speak with, I think that it's being changed. I think that now the data and AI teams starting to implement and starting to learning the security a language, as we said, and the security also start to understand what happens in this what is the difference between data analysts, data engineers, data scientists, MLOps, machine learning engineer, so many words. I thought they're all doing the same until now. Now I understand that they have some separate roles there that they need to start to understand, and I think that we're starting to see the first, the start of this coverage of the basics.
So where I was partially going with that is in terms of prioritization, I agree as it exists today, but should it be starting earlier? So, educating, like,
Education.
yeah, the
Why are
education
we not
aspect.
prioritizing that at the very beginning? If you are allowing children to have hands-on keyboards, why do we have learning to code and then later hiring developers and trying to teach them security?
After.
At the beginning, if you are coding, you should learn how to code securely. And then I don't even have to worry about that later as someone trying to hire you or you learning to work with you. I don't even have to probably use some of these tools. I wouldn't have needed firewalls back in the day. But why are they two separate things, and are you looking at that as a gap to push to, especially if you're working with government agencies, why are we not putting this in the school systems? We do outreach with our local high schools and our universities, but it should be even before that. And OWASP and other, agencies like that should be pushing these things.
I would say security is usually an afterthought, unfortunately. And it's been like that. We haven't learned. History is just going to keep repeating until we learn together.
And it's, OWASP top 10, why? That should have been gone year 2.
Yeah, yeah. I think it has a lot to do with silos too. Developers and security have been separated. Sometimes they don't even have communication across teams. And that's even something you see in AI as well. You have your data scientists, your developers, and your security team, and no one's in the room during the time of thinking, what are we developing? Are we taking in security? It's usually an afterthought. So this is why things just keep remaining unsafe. And then also the programs for data scientists and for developers, security course is usually an optional, or they might have like just one, and that's it. Yeah.
What we're asking is if you're part of an organization that can say, stop repeating past mistakes, let's get this started now. Because we will continue to just do that every single time.
Well, I think that's a huge part of what we're trying to do here. Like Chloe was saying with the de-siloing, I think that's tremendous because I tell people it's easier from my perspective to come from security and go into AI. Then granted, that's what I did, so maybe that's my bias, but it's easier, I think, for security people to understand the sort of statistical reasoning and mindset and then learn how the iterative ad hoc data science development process goes than for data scientists to start thinking with a security mindset. And that is because of the way that they are educated from the ground up. Like if you're taught as a data scientist to do these iterative experiments, cell after cell in a Jupyter notebook until you get something that hits a percentage mark and then you ship it and it's not your problem anymore. And these are, fundamental aspects of the development culture in this industry that contribute to the continual siloing. So from my perspective, it's up to security professionals and security-minded developers. Sorry, once again, security professionals are going to save the world, and this time we're going to get credit for it. We're going to get credit for it this time. But we're going to have to be the ones to learn to think statistically, because I think that may be easier for security people to do than for stats people to think in security terms. So we may be the ones to have to initially bridge that gap and do the educating, if that makes sense.
I would also add on to that the times where I've seen companies do it well is when their board members are invested in cybersecurity. Like whoever is also the VCs, if they're very much about cybersecurity forward, you're going to see that throughout the company at different times. And so I think the thing is that a lot of companies that are invested in this space, they may not have that cybersecurity background, or they don't see it as to prioritize. They think of sales first. And that's where we are right now. So when we see more resources and more investment in that area, I think we'll start seeing that shift. And it is starting to happen. Now VCs do ask, what's your cybersecurity plan? And that's something in the last few years that is quite unique and good to see. I think we're getting there, but it's going to take a long, painful road ahead.
We see it from our customers, that drive is already there, and we're lucky our board is on board with those things and we push it. But And you're right, we do see more consumer, and ours is business to business, we're not business to consumer, but even consumers now ask questions and because they have concerns about it. But again, I think that it's coming from a different direction. I'm just talking more about, in our business and in our industry, we should be driving it much early on. And even what you're talking about with data scientists and stuff like that, we need to look at things from a security perspective broader than just product security.
Yeah, human element is still very much a prioritization that we need to do.
Yes.
do we need to build out specific AI depth in a specific AI security team, or do we need to upscale kind of all of our security personnel? So I remember when we went through kind of the mobile app revolution, we were more successful when we had dedicated mobile pen testers. How do you all think about that problem today?
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to actually come back to the other question that you asked.
I would say, as a good attorney will tell you, it depends. Honestly, it depends on the size, organization, the company. The smaller ones, we're not going to have, the manpower, the money to be able to pay for something like that. The larger organizations, guaranteed. You could look at any process, Toyota, McDonald's, all these that do a factory line. You get really good at your job, and the next guy does really good at his job. Like, we can get better at it by doing that. So there's a definite benefit to that, but it's not sustainable across all organizations.
I'll add to that I do think that, like, in any case, it's very important that there will be, like, even if you have like AI application security person, it's very important that it will still be like part of the application security team, because it's not really like in the application itself, it's not like completely siloed. Like, there is a lot of like interaction between your model that you deploy into production to the rest of like components and the microservices that you have, and it's sometimes part of the same like development process and the life cycle, and the correlation and the context of the data that you have there, like, it's also like super important. So I do, like, I fully agree that like there is a specific expertise also in some level, also like in specific like AI systems, but it's crucial that it will be like integrated as part of the native team of the application and the product security in order to have through like the contextual like picture together. I
think we're at time.
Yep.
So thank you all once again. If you have any other questions, like, we'll be back there or outside outside those exit doors. But thanks so much, and don't forget the URL behind you, keep on.